Good evening, my drops of shadow, and welcome to episode 26, I believe. It's either 25 or 26 of Into the Shadows. It's been a long 2 weeks since I've been able to grant my eyes upon you, and I'm so happy to be able to do so. And tonight, on a very special night, I felt it apropos to tackle a franchise that is very long standing, and let's face it, if you're a horror fan, you're probably going to be watching one of the damn movies tonight, if not you're already. And tonight, I'm actually asking a friend of mine to join me to help me out with this. We got our buddy Mike Slash from Hellfire actually joining us tonight. How you doing, Mike?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for having me on. How are you doing, folks?
I'm
Tis
doing
Friday the 13th indeed.
indeed.
Perfect night to tackle this. I can't think of anything better.
Well, I'm a massive fan, and I'm sure that almost everybody here is watching is definitely a fan as well. But a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of general housekeeping as per usual, and I call it housekeeping because I like to keep our house. We do have donations still open for Kinko, so please donate and buy one of the Kinko shirts that are down below. Also, by the by, we have the Live 365 app. If you check out Hellfire Radio on that, you will be able to listen to us anywhere you go, even in your pocket, and I have no problem being in somebody's pocket. And we've got some wonderful things here at the station. You can continue to listen to us on YouTube. You can listen to us at the website. We have an Instagram, not to mention here at Hellfire Radio's Facebook page. I'm hoping that if it's your first time visiting, you like the page and you follow the page. Consider that to be my request to you. Mike, is there anything in particular you want to add to that at all?
You just about covered it. Um,
What can I say? I'm
Friday the
thorough.
13th. What's that?
What can I say? I'm thorough.
Very thorough. I mean, I'm excited just to get off the show. It is Friday the 13th. We're about to tackle Friday the 13th, and it will be, and no doubt, that's how it's polarizing views. Let's see what we can do with this.
Indeed, indeed. So let's see how many of my drops of shadow have come out of the corners. We've got Paige and Takara, and Justice and Beth, and James and Kirai, and Elizabeth and Rob. My goodness, we've got a full foison of folks here. I'm loving it very much. Yes. Now, there's several interesting points about this franchise, in particular the origins behind it. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the origins or if our wonderful listeners that are currently hearing us going to be droning on about a walking pissed off goalie. What the origins of the film franchise itself were. Are you familiar?
You
Mike?
continue. I'm intrigued now.
Very well. Well, it originally started as a sort of brain project between Steve Miner and Sean Cunningham, the two of which felt they needed to come up with something just to keep the lights on. And Cunningham was thinking of creating this rather peculiar soccer film because, frankly, that was the thing back then. And then in 1979, he began penning a particular script, looking to just put whatever the hell he could out there, whoever the hell it was. And Steve Miner took a look at it, and he added his own panache to it. And thus we had the first script written for Friday the 13th. And before they even had the script finished, before they had even filmed it, they contacted all the film outlets and just had that one preliminary image and that one promotional statement, Friday the 13th, a horror that is coming to you. And they had no idea what the hell the movie was even going to be about. Interesting.
That I was unaware.
Yes. So, they came up with the film. And originally, there were a number of lovely little quirks, especially on the first one. Where the killer was going to be pointed out to have been missing a finger. And somehow shots of the killer's hand amongst the people within the film might have actually been revealed. Like it'll be something where everybody and their mother is always talking throughout the duration of the film, and one by one they all get knocked off. Because let's face it, it's a Friday the 13th film. They all get knocked off one by one by one by one. And one of them would have a missing finger, but it wouldn't be mentioned, except in the context of, we know this psycho killer is out there by the lake and they happen to be missing a finger. Oh no. Then the killer would be revealed. The mystery would be lifted, and we'd have a crap franchise on us. It went through several different iterations in order to be able to implement it. But when they decided to make it the great Betsy Palmer, also known as Pamela Voorhees, for those of you that are unaware, Betsy Palmer was an actress in very flowery roles. Her playing the psychotic Mrs. Pamela Voorhees. Ooh, such a 180, don't you say, there, Mike? Yes. Her being the killer was without doubt quite a wonderful, wonderful turn. What do you think of the first film?
I think even if it were to come out today, in today's age of social media, spoilers, and whatnot, if you could stay away from that, in today's age of being, as the phrase goes, seeing everything and just no surprises, I still think it would throw you for a shock. Having the killer be not only be the victim's mother, who you don't even see, sorry, not the victim's mother, the mother of the boy who drowned, we hear throughout the film, then finally is the big reveal. I think it would still be shocked even if it came out today. And that's why it holds up. And that's where the entire legacy starts for Friday the 13th.
I mean, they did try to do a reboot fairly recently.
Yeah, in theory. In theory.
It's one of those films where when it was released, we almost treated like a, yes, it's not really ours.
To its credit, and I dare speak of another franchise, we're supposed to stick to that. It was better than the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot, but at the same time, when the bar is low to begin with, it's not hard to do.
Yes.
So maybe that's a moot point.
You see, I am very much a fan of England, and very much a fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street, and
as we all should be.
And I mean, come on, the look alone, and the panache, as Justice puts it so wonderfully, it's a little off-putting, I feel. And when you get a reboot of that caliber, it just makes you literally Jersey out and go, the fuck did that happen? It's a little off-putting, I feel. But then, after the first film, they figured, okay, one and done, that would be it, however, what have you. And suddenly, near the end of the filming of the first one, they came up with an idea, a thought, a concept. What if we add something to possibly opened it up to ambiguity, leave it with a bit of a question, very Kubrick-esque, and have the boy leap from the water upon the individual that was left behind, the final girl, as they call it. Became a classic historic and horror trope, the final girl. The picture of innocence, as it were. The only one that didn't get any throughout the whole fucking movie, and you're wondering, when the hell am I going to see this? Come on. Yeah. And thus we ended up with the iconic portrayal, the first Jason Voorhees. Yes.
And the image just seems to linger when the movie ends like that. It's just one of the last things you see, and 'tis is Jason. Yes. He is born.
Yes. It's funny. When they were getting ready to shoot the second film, and they called back the actress that had survived the first film, they didn't tell her that she was going to be killed in the opening of the second film. She had no idea. She wasn't even given a script. She was merely told, react. Just react. Thinking, oh, okay, possibly a little bit of a jump scare here and there, possibly wake up from a nightmare, who knows? And then when she opens up the fridge and sees the head rotting of Pamela Voorhees, and we see a rather imposing figure come up from behind with a screwdriver and very effectively end that child's life. A screwdriver that was supposed to be retractable, as it turns out, wasn't 100% retractable. The actress later recounted.
That is interesting.
Yes. So, as such, she was gone, and the second film takes place many years later. And thus we get the burlap sack, as I like to call him.
Which to me is actually, even though it was just one movie, to me that is almost, again, not quite, almost as iconic as the hockey mask. You can't beat the hockey mask, obviously, but the burlap sack, as it is, it just has such a gritty, organic look to it. It's iconic. Almost, again, folks, almost as much as the mask.
Yes. And yet the second film did commit one very horrid sin. The horrid sin of Jason taking the burlap sack off near the end of the film, briefly, to show a perfectly human head. Non-mongoloid, non-mangled, non-mutated, regular face. A little bit of a throw-off, I feel. I believe.
I mean, what do they say? The best thrills, scares is all left to mystery. Sometimes you can't beat what the best special effects can't beat the imagination. Keep the sack on. Let your mind wander. What does he look like? What does that face look like? Instead of taking it off and showing,
Yes. Actually, I'm mistaken. I was thinking of the Halloween series where the face mask was taken off, I believe, in the second film or the first film. However, in the
end of the first film, right? But still,
in the second film, in the second Friday the 13th film, the burlap sack did get removed briefly, and you did see a very mangled and mongoloided face. You see, one's memory has a tendency to blend everything together. I do apologize for that, folks.
Mongoloid or not, still taking it off. It could have been normal face or mongoloid face. Regardless, mystery can sometimes be key. A little mystery goes a long way. So keeping it on, you still just don't know. Which I think would have worked out better because it's the first time or first movie Jason appears, part 2, as the villain. So why not reveal until later? Let the audience wonder, okay, this is the boy we heard about in part 1. The mother is now dead. Okay, what does he look like? Let's not reveal it. Let's wait till later on. Allow some mystery versus, that's what it is. So now, franchise moving forward, we know what to expect. Granted, the look does change, obviously, with effects and storylines, but if we would have not seen anything in part 2, it just would have allowed that much more aura behind it. Especially for his first appearance, which I think the franchise would have done two shocks. One, the first movie being the mom as the villain, and the second movie not revealing anything about Jason's look.
Yes.
Double combo right there. But to be forgiven, as you said, very briefly. Briefly.
You catch a slight glimpse behind the curtain, as it were. And then we are blessed with the third installment, Jason 3, D. The 3D Jason film.
Just based on title alone, I have to love that film.
Yes. A little bit
Jeez,
punny,
in the 80s, before today's 3D, 80s 3D. I mean, come on. Glasses, the plastic gimmicky glasses.
Yes. it was done rather cheesy, I will admit, and you could tell they had purposely set shots up specifically to create a 3D effect. And tales of the filming of a wallet being thrown for over 3 hours just so it can land at the dead center of camera frame. Just for a wallet being thrown for hours by the same rather annoying individual which was introduced into this film known as Shelley. The prankster, however, is granted one of the most iconic titles. He was the one that gave Jason the hockey mask.
That does count for something.
Yes. You almost are redeemed for how often it is annoying this little shit is the one that gave Jason his most iconic look. Sometimes you never know what direction things will go. Possible. Likely. Maybe. Who knows? But also within that film, another little treat, to be sure, is once again we're treated to another final girl. We're treated to one of what is known as the most brutal kills ever to exist within the film series itself, which is the wheelchair kill. The man back on the wheelchair with the machete through the face. Very well done.
Does not get old.
Oh, it never gets old. Never. And the actors and actresses, well, I'll just call them actors, okay, keep it gender neutral, as it were, are still to this day friends, conversing about the time they visited Camp Crystal Lake. Rather iconic, I feel. So remember the wonderfulness of it. And then we have the hockey mask. It is all the lovely and oh dear gods.
I mean, it would only be fitting that the film you get your iconic look is the film where they somehow had the idea to do an 80s 3D, folks, which is not the high-tech-ish 3D today. It was your stereotypical flimsy, I wouldn't even call it plastic, flimsy, cheap dollar store glasses they give you. And yeah, would have been great to see that for the first time, just to see how terrible, or at the time, probably great, but in retrospect, yeah.
I mean, this
thrown at the screen, few blood splatters here and there.
The squeezing of the head so that the eyeball comes out directly at the audience.
You mentioned the obvious filming scenes just so you can throw things to the camera. Whenever I hear that, I think of the last Saw movie, not from a couple years ago, but it was Saw 3D, the finale from 10 years ago, and the very last shot where, spoiler alert for you folks that haven't seen the one from a decade ago, Saw 3D, where you have Dr. Gordon throwing the key literally at the screen, and it just straight down the line of sight into the hallway to leave.
Falls into the bathtub and down the drain.
Yes, right at the camera, and leaves Hoffman to his death, or so we assume. And spoiler alert, but
not for nothing. I mean, the thing is that if something is more than 10 years old, It's no longer a spoiler. It's a get off your ass and watch the fucking movie.
Or we just saved you folks or we just saved someone an hour and a half of time. So it's a win. So either way.
Yes. One of these days, I'll do a deep dive into that series. It's still one of my favorites, and they're releasing a new one next year. They were supposed to release it this year.
Well, I'm glad he brought that up because that will be something we will be dissecting myself here in somewhat soon.
Yes, I cannot wait. Not for nothing, I would love to have seen Spirals. It was co-written by Chris Rock, of all people, who, as it turns out, was an incredible fan of the franchise.
With Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes.
And actually, so besides Chris Rock co-writing it, what actually intrigues me is the fact that they got the originals back. They got Darren Lynn Bousman to come back to direct it, who was in charge of part 2 all the way from part 2 to at least part 4. He was one of the original executive producers. So you know it has to be a good storyline, because if not, they just would have gone to get some no-name director, people to put their name on it, make a few bucks. But the original players agreed to do this. So I have, not just for Chris Rock, but you got the original players behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. It's going to be good.
Oh, yes. I remember when I saw the trailer for it, I was like saying to myself, oh, are they doing a sequel finally to Lethal Weapon? Is this going to be Lethal Weapon 5? Because I'm seeing Chris Rock being a cop, throwing out a little bit of a wisecrack and having a little bit of grit to him.
A little one-liner.
It's the late 2020, it's the late early decade of 2000. Okay, we're in the first 20 years of the 21st century. Everything is gritty. So, of course, they had to make Lee Butters gritty. And the next thing you know, you hear Hello Zepp starting to play. And you're like,
Hello Zepp.
Get the fuck out of here.
Love me some Hello Zepp.
It's like the ultimate theme song. It's ominous. It's operatic. It's emotional. It's impactful. My goodness, the percussion of it alone. Not even percussion as far as an instrument, but percussion in the execution of it. You hear that original, just that slight hit upon the xylophone or the high keys on the piano.
Actually, you have to put Hello Zepp is up there with Friday the 13th, which I'm going to butcher it. The we don't know what that is. We can.
It's K-I. It's the syllables are K-I and M-A, done by the sound producer for the first film. When he did it in the second, he took the 2 words that were said by Betsy Palmer at the time, when she was thinking she was hearing her son tell her, "Kill her, mommy, kill her." I will, Jason. I will. And took those syllables, threw it into a soundboard, and had it where it was kill, 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 mama. Kill, 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 mama. And that's what you heard. Yes. Not my favorite franchise, but I know a shit ton about it.
Still better than Myers. I will hold true to that.
Amen.
I will get butchered on that by folks, but that's okay. I will stand
You know what would be a far more better matchup? Myers versus Leatherface. At least they're on the same plane of existence. They're both non-supernatural beings. Fuck you, those that think that Myers is supernatural. He's just a fucking psychopath from a mental hospital. Get your head out your asses. Okay? That's all. Okay? The better matchup, naturally, is Freddy versus Jason. They are both supernatural beings that are immortal, hard to kill, have a high body count, and let's face it, they are the immovable object versus the unstoppable force. Yes. Although the question is which is the object and which is the force? I feel that Freddy is obviously the force. Jason is the immovable object. Shall I offer my argument?
Yes, please, because I could actually see that both ways.
Hmm.
I was going to say the same, but let's hear it because I can see it both ways.
Jason, for about a good 90% of his presence within the franchise, is without emotion, completely and totally stone. Has a tendency to be imposing, where no matter what it is you throw at him, he continuously stands, manages to weather whatever comes at him, and keeps going onward, unstoppable but immovable. For he is consistently living without any regard to its own existence or environment. That is an immovable object. Freddy, on the other hand, is emotion. He is fear. He thrives on fear. Emotions by nature are turbulent. They are consistently changing at any given time and adapting to its environment. Not only adapting, but adapting to a point where it can evolve and move mountains if need be. Therefore, Freddy is the unstoppable force, because emotion cannot be purged from that which lives.
Emotion does move mountains.
Yes.
Unstoppable.
And once you get going, it's impossible to stop.
Once you get going, I mean, we are all victims of our emotions.
Now, note, I did say Voorhees was free of emotion for 90% of the franchise. There are quite a number of examples, perhaps 3 off the top of my head, where you can quite notably see Voorhees had emotion, pure rage. The first time was in Friday the 13th, Part 7. Down in the basement, surrounded by flame, well, not by flame yet. However, he still had the cord wrapped around his neck, and the mask had been torn from his face, split, if you will. And he's looking at Tina with this zombified flesh upon him, grabs hold of the cord, rips it off, and looks to her as if to say, "You just done fucked up, bitch." And about 30 seconds later, when the gasoline can is moved telekinetically to start spraying him, and the furnace behind Jason suddenly is stoked, he takes one look at her, takes one look at the furnace, then back at her, and you could see quite visibly an emotion upon the face, as if to say, "Don't you fucking dare." Go back and look. It's there. 2 examples in that. And then in 2 other points. Point 1, Freddy versus Jason. In his actions, when they were both finally in the real world, Jason doesn't look for a killing blow right off the bat. He grabs hold of that striped motherfucker and continues to ram him through window pane after window pane after window pane and window frame laterally, just to cause damage, because he's pissed. Example number 2. And then the third, my personal favorite, Jason X. When Uber Jason finally arrives, and you see the eyes. And the eyes, while they may be red and not enough, is enough to say, "Holy crap." What do you see? The eyes widen as it looks down at the gunshots and looks as if to say, "Oh, now you're just annoying me." You see, the first one was anger and surprise. In the second example, it was pure revenge and rage. And in the third one, it was whimsical confidence and overpowered ego.
I just love Jason X so much that I could discuss that for an entire show. I mean, can you think of a cooler kill, maybe, but at least on the same level as when he ducks her face into that liquid nitrogen or the ice, and then just
crunch,
smash. I mean,
speaking of Jason X, there is an interesting, I don't want to say crossover in lore, but crossover in actors with another Full Moon actor. In Jason X, the person that was head of the government project to originally capture Jason and use him for the government, the Doctor. You know who I'm talking about? That particular actor?
The face.
Yes. He was the one that was telling Lexa Doig, no, we're going to use him. We're going to weaponize him and study him. His regenerative properties alone are enough for scientific study for at least the next 50 years. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Yes.
I do. The name's drawn a blank, but the character I do.
Now, do you know what other film he was in?
And this is going to cross over into the realm, the horror realm.
Oh, yes. Full Moon, as a matter of fact. He was the killer in Nightbreed. He was Zipperface. He was Boone's psychiatrist. Same actor.
So we have a Barker crossover.
Yes. Same actor. Different characters, unfortunately. But same actor. And often when you have similar actors or same actors from two different franchises in one, it is more than likely that similar characters have just as much of a likelihood of crossing over. One could only hope. Because in the original script for Freddy vs. Jason, the ending alone would have definitely been a crossover into the Barkerverse. In particular, the Hellraiser Nightbreed verse. You remember the original ending, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh yes. Our buddy makes an appearance.
Yes.
He
those
says, "What's his line?"
I will tell you in a moment.
Are you fighting? What are you guys fighting about?
Well, the actual line, and I'll explain it to those that are currently listening what the setup was. Freddy and Jason are finally in hell. They realize they're finally in hell. They're about to come and clash yet again. And out of the shadows, chains shoot out from out of frame, wrap them both up, pull them apart, and a silhouette of an individual steps from the shadows and flames and simply says, "Gentlemen, is there a problem?" He who has several pins upon the face, the Hell Priest himself, Pinhead. Yes. Voiced by Doug Bradley, of course. But back to Friday the 13th. You have the 4th. Post Jason 3D, we have the 4th and the first appearance of that little gremlin that is Corey Feldman.
Corey Feldman. Plain. I mean, I can't think of any other movie in the franchise, let alone horror franchise, with even between two actors as crazy as having Corey Feldman and Crispin Glover in the same cast.
We also have Kevin Bacon in the first film.
Kevin Bacon, true, but I would not put him up on the same crazy pedestal as Feldman and Glover, eccentric level. Famous.
So eccentric?
Yeah.
First Nightmare on Elm Street film. Who made his film debut?
So we have Depp.
Mm-hmm.
We have Depp. We have Depp. But eccentric, yes. Just I want to. Feldman and Glover. eccentric, definitely, but there's eccentric slash crazy slash just I was trying to think of the word. I just still on their own. They still have their own just
They're crazy off screen as they are on.
yeah, like their own just area. Depp, eccentric, famous, Bacon, but as well, but they just can't touch the crazy weirdness of the Glover Feldman combo together together in one movie.
Yes, yeah, I can certainly concede. Well, you have this Feldman playing one of the only other characters to show up in more than one Friday the 13th film. We had 3 Tommy Jarvises. We had Feldman. You had the Tommy Jarvis that showed up in 5, the thin, geeky, reedy looking motherfucker. And then you had the bulked up jock Tommy Jarvis in 6.
From and what else is he from? Speaking of
Oh,
crossovers,
it's not ringing a bell.
Tom Matthews,
Okay.
the actor, Return of the Living Dead,
Okay.
1 and 2.
Zombie. Yes,
Zombies.
unfortunately.
Not quite the same, but another horror crossover.
Yes,
But-
yes.
He's known, and I think he's known for both, equally known for both.
Yeah, you see, I avoided almost everything that I could whenever it came to any zombie films. They're overdone, overplayed. Dear gods, please stop. I beg of you.
When
So
it comes to fast zombies, yes. Slow zombies, they're good in my book.
Romero was the god, and God bless Romero.
But I digress. We can back to your 3 Tommy Jarvises.
The 3 Tommy Jarvises, yes. Which means the character was that important. And on top of that, some little tidbits about Feldman playing Tommy Jarvis. When he was filming in his youth, his first appearance, he was in the process of filming Goonies. And on top of that, had caught pneumonia. When he was wearing that bald cap, he didn't need much makeup to look the way he did. That's 2. 3, when he was originally being cast, the casting director said, I don't think he can lift a machete to be able to do that final scene. We don't think he can do it. To which Feldman replied to the casting director in a very glib Corey Feldman way, even in his youth, hey, I'm an actor. I can act like I can lift it.
I can almost visualize a very Feldman-esque rant.
Yes, he
With that.
can. He can. Even in his youth, as Mouth, he could and did. And he was still in the process of filming Goonies when they filmed the sequel scene, because he was originally going to be, I think it was Goonies, or he was filming another film at the time. And there was the scene in the beginning of 5. The rain scene where he's having the nightmare that Jason is being reborn from the grave. That scene where
Yeah.
Feldman is doing it, at the time, he had still had pneumonia. And the only reason why he wasn't in that film was because he had other filming obligations. So that was roughly a half-hour shoot. That was it. Just enough for him to actually show up in the film credits.
I believe it was the Goonies. You're right.
Yes.
It's 85. I believe it was the Goonies.
Yes. And so, you have the 4th, where we have standards, and you see what they said was supposed to be the final Jason film, the final Friday the 13th. That's why they
Final
say
chapter.
Friday the 13th, part 4, the final Friday. And you see head impaled upon machete through the eye, and head beginning to slide down. The fuck? No. There should be not another. At least if they were planning to keep it, it's a human. Because in the third film, yes, he took an axe to the solar plexus, across the shoulder. Could somebody survive that? Sure.
Yeah.
I've seen worse injuries people recover from. Who knows? Not likely, but possible. Okay. But a machete through the damned eye and across the damned brain plate. You must be bloody mad. By the way, I feel I should address the elephant within the room. I don't know where the fuck this English accent is coming from, and it's driving me up the fucking wall because I can't shake it. This is what you get for doing years and years of voice actor work. It sticks with you and it refuses to go away. By the way, folks, I hope that you know I'm not ignoring you. I do see your comments, and I do wish to say hi to all the wonderful people that are saying hello. Hello, Gabby. And Kiwi, yes, I do see you there. And Sheena, it's always good and wonderful to see you. And good evening, Mary. It's honestly, there is so much to be said. I don't wish to miss a single thing. Like, you know, with the fourth film, they had no intent on coming out with another one. They were done. Absolutely, positively, bloody finished. And then they decided to make another one. With fake Jason. Legitimately fake. Now, mind you, the fourth one, its production problems, it had two different actors playing Jason. Ooh. And it's quite notable, too. Because if you notice, take a look at the mask design and body and gait of the individual in the fourth one during the paintball scene. The mask seems a little wider, a little bit less with definition. And then later in the film, suddenly, the mask is wrapped around a little bit more, and the body is a little bit built differently. Plus, the movements don't seem nearly as robotic, I guess is the best way to put it. Possibly.
One of those things that now that you point it out, it's a little more obvious.
Yes.
But
once
again,
you see it, you can't unsee it.
Once the light bulb goes out, it goes off. Yes.
Yes.
Forever there.
Yes. And then when the fifth one came out, you know, there were little hints that it was fake. It was not the real Jason. The markings on the mask being blue as opposed to the iconic red. What the fuck? Seriously? You know, and there's just the overall nature of the kills. You just had to say to yourself, really? Really? Okay. Sure. I'll buy that for $1. You know, throw, what's her name? Sarah Reicher's daughter out of a window. I'm not sure if you're familiar with who Reicher was. She was executive producer on Nightmare on Elm Street. Her daughter was the multicolored haired girl that was doing the robot before meeting her demise with a window. Yes.
Okay.
Another little crossover. Kinda. Keeping horror within the family, as it were.
You like our crossovers. I was not aware of the fact that first Friday the 13th had so many, but
Friday. Well, ironically, what is Wes Craven's son was supposed to be Jason in the very first film. It was supposed to be him coming up out of the lake. The irony is that Wes Craven's wife said, "You're going to take our son and make him go into this lake at this time of night and that cold? I don't think so." Son's not bitter.
And that would be a crossover. I don't know if anything could ever top that.
But then again, we also had Tom Savini in the first Friday the 13th as the makeup designer.
Yep.
The king.
Machine himself.
Sex Machine himself, yes. Thank you for actually knowing that reference. Yes. Savini I have to respect his craft. When he originally got hired, he walked right up to Sean Cunningham and said, okay, I've already made some notes here on the script here. Do you want this with a real axe and a fake head, or do you want a fake axe with a real head? Because I got about 6 or 7 different ways to actually do this thing. He had a skill, yes, just like that. The one scene that was on the movie posters of the girl with the freaking axe through the damn face. Only awesome. And purposely added to make the light sway, because he wanted people to believe that the axe had enough force to strike and actually was hitting something. Nice little camera effect.
He's a true master of his craft, a lost craft before everything went to CGI hell. That's a whole conversation for another time. But yes.
Practical effects. Still a win of the day. You could get creative with practical effects when you really want to. But yes, we have the fourth one with the fake Jason. Okay, which had okay. We're not going to be expecting another Friday the 13th at any point soon. Rather sad. And then the fifth one was the fake one, rather. I apologize.
Fifth one was fake.
Yes. And then we get 6, where Jason has actually legitimately returned.
Not to get ahead of ourselves, but as much as I love 6, that's how much I hate 7. But we'll wait for 7. Continue. I love 6. Part 6 is...
6 was the return of Jarvis. Plenty okay. Cannot hate too much. Okay? 6 was for what it was. We actually finally got something. I'm not sure if it was 6 or 7. Was it 6 or 7 when we got Harder?
When we got
Kane.
I believe that was. I think that was 7. 6 was still CJ. 6 was CJ Graham. So it was at least 7, if not 8. Yeah, Kane was after Graham.
Yeah, Kane was 7, 8, Hell, and X.
Yes.
There you go. You see, for those of you that don't know, Friday the 13th was notorious for recasting Jason Voorhees constantly, non-stop. Yet there was only one person that has played him multiple times, and that was Kane Hodder.
The infamous Kane Hodder.
Yes. He who gave us the definitive Jason in body motion, head motion, and emotion in Jason Voorhees.
And yet the studio still didn't have half a brain to cast him in Freddy versus Jason.
There was a reason for it. It was a fucked up reason, but it was still a reason for it. The thing is that Freddy was meant to be short. He's only 5'8". In all honesty. Rather a short individual. I would know. I'm that height. But then, you want a stark contrast. At 5'8", Kane Hodder is not really that much taller. He's like what, 6'1"?
So you put fucking platform. You work your movie magic.
Yes.
You work your movie magic. Tom Cruise is like 5. Danny Trejo was like 5'1", 5'2", and he looks like a fucking giant on screen. Remember Desperado or anything he's in? He looks like a freaking giant. Jesus, work your movie magic, folks.
Well, yes, but when you have a director that's known for doing full body shots for full fight scenes, which is who they got. I forget what the name of the damn actor was. The director was. He had done some Japanese films.
He
But
was,
it was
Ronnie Yu.
Ronnie Yu.
Ronnie Yu.
Yes. All right. Now, you can't really do too many camera tricks to fake out height with something like that. You legitimately have to have a tall individual and a short individual. So, when you have that going on, what you do is you have someone that is well over 6'5", over someone that is like 5'8" or 9. Make the short one have to look up. Make it look like it's possible that Freddy could be overpowered, but not overthought. This was strictly a battle of wits versus brawn. Brains versus brawn.
And I agree. I agree 100%. You have the first matchup. You have the first matchup, Freddy and Jason, and yes, you have to have a contrast there. As you said, fuck up reason, but a reason. I agree, but work your damn movie magic, people. Figure it out. This was 2000 and something. It doesn't matter. It was in the 2000s. They could have figured it out.
It was in the early on.
Still in the 2000s, enough time. People had their tricks. They could have done it.
Oh yes, hands down, no doubt, no question. But you know, when you're dealing with a purist, you have to work with what you got. But
and we got
the six had an interesting thing though. 6 gave us something that ended up becoming something of reality. Because of this, at the bottom of a particular lake, I can't remember the name of the lake, there is a statue of Jason Voorhees at the bottom of the lake looking upward with a chain attached to his neck, the rock.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
It is somewhere. Yeah. I want to say it's somewhere. Does that narrow it down? It's somewhere.
It's in that thing with that place with that time about that thing.
Exactly. That could be close to such and such. But yes, that there is a what would you think the first person to find that the reaction would be? Haven't read it. Imagine this. You don't know anything about this. You're going scuba diving or swimming or whatever you're doing, and you're just going along, and then the water is clear, whatever the visibility is underwater, and all of a sudden you come face to face with just this huge Jason statue. That would be amazing.
What would be my thoughts of a person's reaction?
I can only imagine what that would be.
I could give you a general idea. The reaction would be more or less written on the coroner's report after the pathologist managed to identify the body.
Sounds about right. But what a way to go out.
Oh, yes. Scared to death by Jason Voorhees statue at bottom of lake. News at the 7.
Or the flip side is like in the movies where you're going along, you see the statue, then the next scene of the movie is you telling the people in the white straitjackets, or rather, you have the white straitjacket on, you're telling the gentleman ahead of you, I swear to God, I fucking saw Jason down there. Go, why don't you believe me? As you get dragged away. Or that scenario happens. One of the two.
Yes. So then we come to what you consider to be your most hated, yet I consider to be one of my favorites.
And it's probably for the same reason, maybe. One word, telekinesis.
No. I liked it because it was the first time we got to see Kane in the role.
Okay.
And the villain wasn't necessarily Jason. The villain was that piece of shit psychologist.
Well, I took the words out of my mouth. The one saving grace, besides Kane's first appearance, is, Terry Kaiser, the psychiatrist. Let's be honest, folks. Anytime you have Bernie in a movie, he elevates it up more than it should have. And
Yes.
Put Bernie in a movie, automatic extra few points. Exactly. And if nobody knows that reference, then it's probably past your bedtime because you didn't grow up with the classics. He knows what I'm talking about.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
One of my personal favorite films. So, you see, with Seven, we got the definitive idea, a primer of Jason himself. You got to see, and I believe they bring back Savini just to gore up the body a bit to show all the
Probably did. They probably did.
that Jason had sustained. This is where we finally realize he is not a consistently regenerating creature. He actually can get damaged. Not only can he get damaged, you could see how he got damaged. And you get to see emotion in Voorhees. And, my personal favorite, more than anything else, you get to see the first, and I think this is the first time, it's the ultimate you just fucked up pose. It's when Jason's looking in another direction and goes and starts coming at you. The head move and then the body move.
Which, yes, the last thing you'll ever see.
Yes. That's when you see an immovable object coming at you.
Point taken again. Yep.
It was almost like he cannot be stopped. And the acrobatics that Harder pulled, jumping through a window like a hurdle in a relay. Beautifully done. Beautifully done. With no assistance either. He just ran and jumped and landed. 10 out of 10. I've been watching too much of The fucking Crown. This shit is sticking in my damn voice and it's not going away.
But what a beautiful voice it is.
Oh, thank you much, sir. Thank you. You flatter. So we come to my most hated. Jason Takes Manhattan.
You know, they dropped the ball on that in a couple key areas. It's not my most hated, but we'll let you dissect, and then I'll bring up why and where they dropped the ball.
Yeah, let's work backwards a little bit, okay? And you want to know what? Since we're talking about New York, I could drop the freaking British. I could go straight into it, okay? First and foremost, since when the fuck does toxic waste turn something that looks like Jason Voorhees into a little kid without a single freaking scratch on his body in a New York sewer? That's one. Two, since when is a New York sewer? You want to know what here? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this fucking right, okay? Since when does a New York sewer actually cause no freaking mold and you're not seeing a single turd floating in that water? Okay? I did not see one sewer rat in that son of a bitch. Those are the cleanest fucking sewers I've ever seen in my damn life. You gotta be fucking kidding me. That's two. Okay? Three. What little shits are gonna be sitting in the middle of Times Square blasting around a freaking boombox and not come packing heat when this fucking hockey puck comes up and kicks that shit around and the kids say hey and Jason turns the fuck around? He should have had at least 8 or 9 freaking 9mm shells immediately into his back and his chest from that alone. Not the kids looking at him, waiting for him to go and then go walking away. That shit don't happen. And 3, oh God, no. Okay, wait, one more. Can I go one more?
Let's go one more.
What's one more? Okay, since when does a fucking boat that's in a lake in Camp Crystal Lake manage to actually go down into New York Harbor if it's a fucking lake? How?
If it's a lake, I can argue with those. I can't.
I mean, for fuck's sake. It was a landlocked lake. How the fuck is it ending up in New York Harbor? Don't get me wrong, erosion can happen and shit, but we're talking about a goddamn cruise liner here. No. No. It does have some redeeming points. Okay? That scene where he does kick that over, turns around and slips that up, That's the most hilarious fucking scene I've seen in a film in Friday the 13th forever. The kids freak out. They're like, oh, okay, man. And then walk away. Okay. I'm like, okay. Well done. Didn't he? He actually legitimately knew to turn and show his face to shut them the fuck up. Win.
Yep.
And the scene on the rooftop with the boxer.
I mean, it doesn't. Let's be honest. It doesn't get any better than that when he's giving his quips and they're going at it. I mean, you know what was going to happen, but that's about as entertaining as it gets for that movie. Anyway.
To quote, "Give me your best shot." And apparently, they threw that dummy head into that alley 7 times just to be able to get it to land in the dumpster. That had to happen. Had to happen. What are your takes?
So I like a ship setting. There's not enough of them for horror movies. There's not. There's probably ship, train, like a moving. Granted, they get off the ship eventually as a move in the movie, but any like a ship, a train, those kind of settings, there's not enough of those in horror films. So I love that. That's why I do enjoy it. But they dropped the ball. I wanted more. Okay, it's Jason Takes Manhattan. I wanted more city carnage.
Man, you get Manhattan for the last 10 minutes of the movie.
I wanted more city carnage
for an hour and a half, and it's in the last 10 minutes.
Isn't there a part? Correct me if I'm wrong. But when he's walking, I might be where the kid scene you're talking about. Doesn't he look up at a billboard of somebody with a hockey mask? Is that there? He does. Okay. So, if they know enough to add that, where the joke is, oh, he looks up at a board seeing someone or something looks like him.
And he does do the head tilt.
He does the head tilt. I guess they thought it'd be funnier to leave that split-second scene in there. To them, that was better than actually having a scene of him going into a hockey. I mean, look, come think about it, folks. Jason Takes Manhattan. They add that head tilt scene. The next logical scene is for him to actually infiltrate a hockey game and start creating carnage on the rink where people think the fights are going on. Think about this. He's killing people on the rink, and no one knows what's going on. Everybody, New York in the 80s, or not even that, hockey games now, people going crazy, seeing people thrown to the ground, blood splattered. The audience, think about this. The audience is loving it. Watching the game, they're loving it, thinking it's just fights while he's chopping off heads, stabbing people. And before you know it, he just demolishes everyone. Then the camera angle has the zoom up to his face. He looks up at the stands, walks toward them. Everybody leaves, and it's just that's how you take Manhattan. That's how you create carnage, not this last 10 to 15 minute dinky walkthrough where
that would have been the last
walks away.
You see, that would have been the last shot of the movie, if only for one reason. The last shot of the movie, he would have died on the rink. Because I guarantee you what they would have had is one of the remaining people hit him with a Zamboni.
Which I would have been totally that. You can't top that for a Jason movie.
Especially considering somebody with Jason Voorhees' grace and gait. You really fucking think that guy's going to be able to handle walking on ice?
You know what? If I can buy telekinesis and everything else, I can buy him walking on ice. But again, to my point, you have the trouble, and it's a good joke. Don't get me wrong. He walks past the kids, looks up at the billboard, does the head tilt, walks off. That's a good joke. But come on, include some other city card scene, or have him go to a hockey, or have him go through. How about this? Have him go just through the crowd, where you have like the bullies and the jackasses, hey buddy, what are you doing up here? Aren't you in the wrong spot? And throw popcorn or whatever they had him, and he starts creating havoc through the stands.
They did that at the rave scene in Freddy vs. Jason.
So they waited 10, 20 years too late. But it's Jason Takes Manhattan. That's really dropped the ball. That's really dropped the ball. I wanted
I
more
would
men.
want him to go through Harlem.
Because movie ends right there.
Yeah, he goes through Harlem. I guarantee you, folks would have come out of fucking woodwork to fuck him up. They would have come out of the woodwork to fuck him up, or have him go through the Bronx. That's it. Friday the 13th, Rumble in the Bronx.
Before Jackie
Rumble in
Chan.
the urban jungle. There you go. There you go. That would have been a movie right there.
That would have been
Opportunities.
for even that weakness again, because I love a good ship setting, and there's not enough of those. I love a good ship setting, and we did get not nearly enough. But we did get some city carnage, but not enough to justify the title. But it's not the worst. It's not the worst. I can still enjoy it.
Let's move on to Jason Goes to Hell. Yeah, that's all that needs to be said. So let's go about Jason X. I'm sorry.
I get the exact opposite. I get the exact opposite reaction. Now it goes from to.
See, that's just it. Jason Goes to Hell was without a doubt. It was the most. Are you fucking like? Jason Goes to Hell is to Friday the 13th fiction as Twilight was to vampire fiction.
You know what? That's a bold. You know what? That's a bold statement, but I can't argue with it.
Yeah, that was somebody that took the base elements and added their own shit. Oh, if you ingest a part of the body, then you are now Jason.
You know, and it's funny how when people defend that, or I will go take it one step back. When you look at movies in general and several sequels later, or the end of a film, whatever it is, these outlandish plot points happen. Someone says, well, wait, so a guy can come back to life several times, but we're not going to believe that, or he can do this. But that's not the point. You have to have these rules established somehow in some form early on, or at least hint to it. You can't just pull them out of your ass because it's going to be the last film. At least they thought so at the time. But yeah, where the fuck did that come from?
There's one word. There's actually two words that, when combined, immediately is meant to shut that shit down. The one word is lore. The other word is canon. And when you have canon lore, it's meant to shut that shit down. Now, when you get a director or a writer that takes one look at canon lore and wipes his ass with it, you get Jason Goes to Hell.
To my point, it's like you need to have this. Where'd this come from? At least bend some previous discussions, even a little bit. It doesn't have to be exact, but have them align somewhat. They didn't do that. No. I
hate to draw a comparison between franchises here, but Friday the 13th was known for manipulating the lore and changing the lore constantly in order to be able to justify a film. Every time. They'll modify his strengths. They'll modify his weaknesses. Oh, if you wear a sweater and you yell, listen to mother, Jason will obey you. Oh, he's been injured this many times, but somehow he regenerates completely. Or, oh, he doesn't regenerate completely, but he still has the same hockey mask. Or, oh, lake isn't landlocked. It could actually lead into a stream into New York Harbor. Or, oh, if toxic waste contacts his body, suddenly he's back to a child. Or, oh, if you ingest a part of his body now, you're him, and whatever it was a former carcass that he had inhabited. You know, a constant lore changes. But then you take a look at the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. He is locked to his lore 100%. His lore has not changed one bit, with the exception of adding in the backstory. He can only get you in dreams. He only has power if you believe in him or are afraid of him. And he's whimsical as fuck. He was burned when he had escaped conviction. and he was based in Springwood, Illinois.
And that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, that's his lore.
That's it. There's nothing else to it. They tried to modify it in the second film, and we all saw how Freddy's Revenge went.
Speaking of lore and Freddy, did you catch, what was it, Freddy's Nightmares? Do you remember that?
Oh, yes.
In the very first episode, they actually was now. Granted, the series was a mixed bag, but still entertaining.
They opened up with the trial of Fred Krueger.
Fred Krueger. They got England to book in. It's very Crypt Keeperish. They got him to book in the beginning and end, right, of his little, pop-ups and speech. Yeah, very, Crypt Keeper-ish from the episodes. But the first episode, they did give you, and they kept it the same, didn't it? From what I remember. Yeah. Pretty much from the last movies.
All they did was they added in that the whole reason why there was a technicality is they did not read him his Miranda rights when they arrested him. And they did not get a proper search warrant when they raided his shed at his home. And they did not get a proper search warrant for when they searched the boiler room at the school.
That's still consistent.
Consistent the whole time.
Yeah.
They tried to change. They did, I will admit, in Freddy's Dead, they did try to change what it was that gave him his power. Or at least they added in what gave him his power. Dream demons.
Dream demons.
Yeah. 3 dream demons in Freddy's Dead gave him his power. When he was surrounded by flames after the parents had torched the place, he hadn't caught fire yet. These 3 dream demons came to him and said, "We can help you survive. We can give you power." And he agreed to it. And that's why he could invade people's dreams and shit. That was the explanation in Freddy's Dead. But then Wes Craven's New Nightmare came out and indicated that Freddy is actually a tulpa. For those of you that don't know, a tulpa is a creature that only exists and manifests if you believe in it enough, and ends up having all of the power and capability of that which is written and told about it. Something that only exists within the stories that are told of it. And the only way to keep it under control is if you keep telling stories of it. Actual mythical creature. That was the only change in lore, was what it was that gave him his power. That was it.
But in its defense, that was for New Nightmare. It was. I would almost say you could spin that any way you want, because it became meta, and in that sense, you could really, add almost anything and still be believable, because now it's not just they're talking about the movie within the movie. So I still defend that to a degree in that context. Of a New Nightmare-esque.
It was a retelling in its own right. It wasn't a reboot. Right. They still had England, and what they did was they said, "Yeah, we told the story of his origin because that was the story that we told." And the moment that we stopped telling the stories, that's when the real creature was released. So basically, there's 2 Freddys. There's the Freddy that exists in the stories, and there's the creature that was manifest of Freddy.
Mm-hmm.
And that creature alone was the creature of Nightmare, where it manifested in reality, went after Langenkamp, went after John Saxon, went after Wes Craven, went after what the fuck is his name? He actually cameoed in the second Nightmare on Elm Street in a leather bar, and he's like the lead executive producer of New Line Cinema.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about. Has a very bad perm.
I feel like I should.
Yeah. He even cameoed as the teacher in I think Nightmare 4 in Nightmare 3 or 4, where he was talking inside of a dark projector room. I can't remember.
I'm good at I've always been this way. I can do faces. I can't do names.
Yeah.
If it came down to one or the other, I can do both sometimes. If it came down to one or the other, it's always the face. Up and in.
And I mean, with Jason, his lore is always evolving because it's such an iconic look to a character. Freddy's behavior is what defined him. Jason's look is what defined him. They both have the same actions. They both go after busty young high school chicks and the occasional asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So that cancels it out. So what is it that defines them? Well, Freddy's lore defines him. He's locked to his lore. You can't change it. Even in Freddy versus Jason, didn't get changed. Okay? All of his strengths, and his strengths were also his weaknesses. That was what he was bound to. Jason, on the other hand, not bound to his lore, and is constantly evolving just to fit the situation for the sake of the fans. Does that make it good? Because if you look at it like this, you have to wonder which Friday the 13th is canon and which one isn't. Which ones? Because if Jason Goes to Hell is canon, then that makes Freddy versus Jason canon. But if Jason X is canon, then there's no way that Jason Goes to Hell is canon. No way.
I see. I still like to. It's my love of Jason X. It's to me, it has to be canon somehow. But yeah, hence therein lies the dilemma.
You have to wonder which one is canon, which one isn't. The Friday the 13th franchise has that problem where you don't know which ones are actually the story and canon and which ones were just made for the sake of turning the light, keeping the lights on. There's some consistent story points and plot points and lore points, but a considerable number of them are not. But then you've also got Nightmare on Elm Street, where every single one of them is canon with the exception of one. And that's Freddy's Revenge. It's the only one that's not canon. And legitimately, because they had it, and legitimately it was because I think they gave it to somebody that felt that it would be a good opportunity to create subtext in a horror film, and figured Freddy Krueger would be the perfect medium for it. And they were originally not going to use Robert Englund.
Oh no!
Yeah, they had another actor, and they just figured, okay, just throw a rubber mask on him, and it looks like Freddy, and that's that. And they tried it at first, and it sucked. And that's why they replaced it with Englund again. And I had to reshoot some shots.
Wow, the smartest thing they did for that was figure out how to get Englund back.
Yeah, when they realized that Englund was what sold that character, that was it. There was no more argument. It is what it is. And they did so many switch ups in that film too. It was ridiculous. But
still.
But then you get Jason X.
Oh yeah. So before we get into Jason X, let's say so Jason Goes to Hell took place, I believe, was made in 92, 93. Jason X came out about 8-9 years later. Do you know what TV show actually predicted Jason going into space?
The Simpsons.
No. Not The Simpsons. They might have. This is something specific. No. It took place between Jason Goes to Hell, and Jason X. It actually predicted Jason going into space for his next adventure. It was the very first episode. Do you remember what was Saturday Night Live's rival in the mid-90s?
Mad TV.
The very first episode of Mad TV did a skit called Apollo the 13th.
Oh.
Do you remember that? Yes.
Yes.
I think it was the first episode.
Yes.
Apollo 13th. That came out about 5-6 years before Jason X. Mad TV almost, in a way, predicted Jason going into space.
No argument. Yeah. That's accurate.
They should put that on the next Blu-ray. They should put that skit as a bonus on the next Jason Friday the 13th Blu-ray release.
Yeah.
But anyway, as you were, Jason X.
You see, I like Jason X for maybe 2 or 3 scenes at most. I liked it when you've got the man that plays Tony Todd, a.k.a. Candyman, getting shanked by Jason. And that one witty quip where he gets stabbed in the back by Jason and he says it's going to take a hell of a lot more than that to take down this old dog. And then the second one hits it. He's like, yep, that would do it. I was like, okay, we're dealing with this kind of a film now.
Yep.
Somebody coming across a body that basically got stuck on a gigantic drill and it says, he's screwed. I'm like, okay.
The reasons why I love it. You have.
It's
and it sounds like you have your stereotypical naive scientist or government whatever say no, we're going to study this. I mean that's your basic horror sci-fi cliche. No, we're not going to leave. We're not going to kill it. We're going to study it. We're going to bring it back to life. I mean, think of folks. That's your tip. I can't think of a bigger cliche in sci-fi horror thriller than no. We need to study this. It's not dangerous. We can contain it. It's okay. Which is fine. But that just sets up for. It's not just Jason in space. It's not just Jason in space. It's Jason in space in the future, right? Because he gets captured, and then it's like 400-ish years later. It's Jason in space in the future, which gives way for your androids, gives way for your. I mean, we haven't talked about one of my favorite parts of the film yet. Well, we talked about the kill, but then later on when they do the simulation, the hologram, right? Back at Crystal Lake. I mean, it just.
You want to smoke some pot?
You have like the most basic, like your basic girl scenes right there to just. So confession. So I'll confess. So, one of the reasons why. So this might have been the only Jason film I saw in theaters, probably. The only Jason film I saw in theaters. So, regardless, still love it. But when that scene came out, the pot, and then the next thing is he's got them in a pillowcase, smacking against. I mean, the whole theater just
sleeping bag kill.
Everybody died. It was one of the greatest moments ever.
Yes.
But you can't. It's a movie. It's aware of its roots. For Easter eggs for us oldies who was at the franchise, it has that scene where. Yeah, he goes back to the hologram, the woods. It's just cheesy as fuck, but entertaining. Everything about it.
Nipples falling off.
I'm not gonna badmouth it for that.
And that's just it. Jason X was made for fans of Jason Voorhees. Let's be honest. It was fan service and pandering at its finest.
I mean,
it wasn't meant to be canon.
Not at all. You had your crazy kills. You brought Kane back. You had your futuristic space adventure. You had your, your cheesy ass hologram scenes. But it was just fun.
Yeah, it was a love letter.
Yeah, cheesy, not canon. But again, it took like 8-9 years after Jason Goes to Hell, where and that was after the and whole other conversation, but after the teenage renaissance of horror flicks of the '90s, your Scream, Faculty, all that teeny bopper crap. Some were good, but this took place a few years after. So yes, up the gore level, up the craziness, and said, "Fuck it, let's take Jason to space, futuristic style, Uber Jason." They could have. I will say this: if they would have kept it very like straight laced, in the sense of, oh, Jason's in the space, but it's not futuristic. It's just a bunch of astronauts studying the damn solar system, and just very kind of more of a laid back narrative. No, terrible. They had to for this to work, and they did it. They had to do the futuristic, high octane action, your lady android, your hologram. They had to go all out, and they did.
The reason why is because most space technology, even today, all you gotta do is just put something the size of a pencil through one key point in the frickin' ship. That's it. The whole damn thing decompresses and explodes. That's it.
It does, right? But if they could have gone the lazy way, and just said, yeah, he's on a ship, and they still could have been far sci-fi feature-esque of, oh, they're going to study Saturn or whatever, which is still out there, but they were smart to amp it up in terms of robots.
He's on a ship and he's going somewhere he's never been before. This sounds familiar. Right or wrong?
Is this a tagline for someplace else? For a different film?
Let's dial back about 20 minutes ago what we were talking about. He's on a ship and he's going somewhere that he's never been before. From somewhere he should not have been able to leave in the first place.
When he was on Manhattan? Oh, the actual ship. The actual ship.
A ship and a ship.
A ship.
What's another word for a boat? A ship.
I guess I do love my ships, don't I?
There you go.
But still,
taking him out of the Crystal Lake environment and putting him into a new environment. An environment that he would not be familiar with, and seeing how he adapts. It's a very desirable thing, naturally. So, yeah. It can be seen, and it's definitely a selling point. Because it makes him legitimately, I want to say, stoppable. It makes him movable.
It makes him vulnerable.
Yes. When you take the home turf out of the freaking equation, and they noted it in Freddy versus Jason. At least Jason has home field advantage.
And so good vulnerability for the villain. But as far as making it work for the story, they have to amp up. They have to go balls out. And again, back to Takes Manhattan, the ship setting itself is great. Goes balls out on that. But then put him in the city itself, and yes, not much to it. And he doesn't go balls out, carnage to the wall in actual Manhattan. That's why that segment, just as we already talked about, that just does not work for me. It's just a slight on the, yes, he's a fish out of water being on land. I mean, he's been on land, but he's in the city now, but you just don't see as much havoc as you should have.
Indeed. And then you end up getting him in space,
where he goes, which Uber Jason kicks ass. Even before Uber Jason, he kicks ass. So in essence, it does work, which is why if they would have, so I reiterate, which is why if they would have gone the laid back, just some boring scientists just studying the damn stars, and he kills it one by one. It's just like, it's a wasted opportunity. They had to get balls out. And they did.
My favorite part is when he did get his ass kicked. When KM unleashes hell, I'm like, finally, somebody thought to blow his fucking head off.
But not before he went all balls out. But not before he went balls out earlier with Uber with, the kills. The whole storyline was
He took down about a good three or four of the students and almost the entire Marine Force when he was just Jason.
yeah.
And then when he became Uber Jason, he did his
No,
dance.
like I said, honestly, the movie probably should not have worked as well as it did. But they got all the elements in place.
And they had a couple of normal tropes thrown in there too, like the two pilots. You got the greasy mechanic that's already been through shit. Remember when he was talking about, man, thank God you weren't around during the franchise wars. People were beating themselves with the limbs back then.
Yep.
That guy should have survived. But then you also got that one freaking quirky ass pilot with the freaking cowboy hat that's pissed off as hell that he has to actually do something and then gets taken out off camera in the most hilarious way imaginable.
Yeah.
Classic cockpit kill.
Maybe in another universe that could have survived, or another script, but no, they had to go.
Yeah. The cool characters always get killed off.
Yeah. Who would have been perfect for Jason X? Because it would have been the most just random ass cameo actor ever, but it just for some reason just would have fit. Dick Miller.
Not putting a face to it.
You would. I'll show you the face, and you will. Yeah, I'll show you his face, and you'll ring him. He was the guy who sold Arnold the guns in the first Terminator at the gun shop. He was the garbage man in The Burbs with Tom Hanks.
Okay.
He's been in too many credits. He finally passed last year, I think. But he was. If you see his face, you'll know. Arnold the Guns and Terminator is the best example I can think of. If any folks listening, if you can throw out any good Dick Miller, he was in Gremlins. He played the neighbor, I think, in Gremlins.
Oh. He was one of the Fettermans.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy's talking about, like, it's almost like you confuse him with Peter Falk without the lisp.
I think he was in Demon Knight. He was also in Demon Knight.
Yeah.
He's been in pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah. We brought you a pie.
Exactly.
Somebody in the subway sat on it.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Some kind of in space, some kind of just weird ass random quip that doesn't have any connection to anything. It just showed up.
You want to know what the thing is? Is that they could have cut to another shot of the interior of another ship, got a hold of the distress signal, heard a few bits of it, and then he just could have been like, "Man, they're all doomed, really doomed."
Just something like that.
Just a callback. That's a callback to the third film. The old guy that actually was like really crazy. It's like, "You're all doomed."
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
The one that got killed in the fourth.
Yeah.
He was in the third one, and then he showed up in the fourth one and got pitchforked, I think, in the fourth. If we get the actor's name, I'll take a look.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're going to end tonight. This is a nice long one. I'm surprised I'm still awake. It's not that the subject matter is disease, it's just, folks, I've basically been up for the last 19 hours, and I'm exhausted. I want to thank Mike Slash for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure, and definitely a kick-ass wicked bit of subject matter. I can say unequivocally, without question or doubt, that this was very fun, very enjoyable. And not for nothing, I will see you all in about 2 weeks again, as we do have Into the Shadows every other week. I want to
Happy Friday the 13th, everyone.
Indeed, happy Friday the 13th. And In closing, as I always say after I remind you all to share this out to groups, timelines, and friends, good night, sleep tight, and if you ask nicely, maybe the vampire in me will bite. Have a good night, folks. Y'all have a good one. Thank you again, Mike. All right. Yes.